Okay, so what is up, guys? Strongboys19 here. So let's just hope that this live stream is going to turn out for the better, and I'm very looking forward to see what we are going to be talking about, and we're going to have just a regular hangout. Hopefully, this is really going to work out. There is a bit of a connection issue that I see from the live streaming post on the YouTube Studio page, and I decided to start the stream with the OBS software that I'm using. So hopefully, it's not going to screw things up, and let's just see what this stream has to offer. And Greedy Selfish 97 um, did remind me about my forced, pointless, stupid little stream that I randomly did without any focus and preparation because I was pretty drunk. But this is really the proper first time streaming, and I hope this works out. Because if it doesn't, I will make an apology on my community section on my YouTube channel. So please, if any of you people are interested enough to come on and, interact with me right now, just say anything, type a question that's music related, and, just have a good time. So I hope you can hear everything really well with my webcam. I was gonna try and think about doing a live stream with my little camera, but unfortunately, I really don't know how to do it. So it's still back to the webcam for now. So what have I been doing? Besides being in my band and performing, I've been coming back to music that I'm really interested in revisiting. Besides the krautrock bands, I've been interested to dive back into Radiohead, since they are one of my favourite bands. And I was listening to their discography in no particular order, and I revisited Kid A, which is an album that I definitely need to review because it is one of my favorite albums of all time. And I'm not going to spoil, a lot of my thoughts about this album because I will be reviewing this in honor of Classic Albums Revisited. Maybe in the next episode. I don't know when I'm going to be doing that, but I feel very confident to say that I will be looking forward to review this album. Other records, I have been playing The Bends, their second album, and I just found this out not too long ago, yesterday, that Street Spirit Fade Out was covered by Peter Gabriel, who's one of my favourite artists of all time, and I'm going to check that version out. But, when it comes to the sound of the band, after Pablo Honey, Radiohead had become really expansive and diverse in their sound, songwriting, and especially with their progression from this album, OK Computer, onwards. I mean, The Bends is a really good debut, a second album. I forgot about Pablo Honey, which I have got right here. But with The Bends, I think that album was the beginning of the shaping up and building up the songwriting inspirations, for Radiohead's career. So I played OK Computer. I still regard this album as really overrated, but I think this is very good. Very good album from start to finish. But I am really more of a person that prefers Kid A. So I had also listened to Amnesiac, the follow-up to Kid A. I really like that album, and for some fans, some comments I've seen from people saying that it's very underrated, and not many people would give it some love, which is pretty strange because I think with Amnesiac, I think the album is like not as strong or perfect as Kid A, but it has that similar approach to that album, and that album's material had been recorded during the Kid A sessions. So I can definitely see why they would like to, leave those songs off from Kid A and put it on Amnesiac. So, yeah, I am going to be still diving into their discography and play this one, A Moon Shaped Pool, which I should have put in as the first part of my favourite albums of the decade video that I've done. And there's going to be a part 2 to this, but this is a little teaser that I would put this in my list of one of the best albums of the decade, because I think A Moon Shaped Pool is really Radiohead's best album in a very long time. So I am halfway through their discography. Um, Beautiful artwork as well. I really like this album a lot. The production is fantastic to the songwriting, and with Tom's voice that is so expressive. So those are my little thoughts why I really like the album a lot. But, I'm just so fascinated and pleased with myself to go back to various bands that I hadn't listened to for a very long time. And with that being said, I would like you guys to be really involved and just to type anything you want in the message box, either just a random question or anything to do with music. Because I really, really do like it when I interact with the comments that I've been getting from my videos from actual people. And, I am very interested to know, some different things about you guys, what you like and what you love in terms of just bands, solo artists, or albums in general. I'm just going to check my phone for a bit to see if everything's good to go. It seems to be. It seems to be going very well. 2 people watching. So to these 2 people, thank you very much for tuning in. And also, if there's anybody else that is interested in this music chats and conversations, please share this around, share this stream around, and spread the word to give this stream some more attention. So yeah, I've just been repeating some of the same words over and over and over again. I've been wearing my blue wrist bandage because I was resting the hand after some practicing for one of the gigs that I'm going to be doing. One gig coming up this Sunday, as I've got so many more gigs booked with Hardgraft, which I'm going to be talking about in a separate video. And I'm always looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to every gig, see what the experience is going to be like with different people, and to make money out of it for a living, just to be in a band, to show to anybody the talents that I could really present with the rest of my bandmates, and do it for a very long time. And my band has been a band for 3 years now, and I'm very, very happy and grateful that it's been that long since the band has been around. So, anyway, people, typing anything you want. I've been rambling too much, so I'm just, awaiting to see what you guys want to say. Glass of water, and it's no beer this time. So this stream is easily prepared. You can see my channel logo, well, my banner that I use on my introduction to my videos, and this little box saying that it's stream number 1, first stream of the year. And to anybody else that had not subscribed to the channel, feel free to do so. I make tons of videos on album reviews, to some separate Q&As, updates, discussions, in all of the obsession that I still have to this very day on music. I'm not going to put any music to this stream, unfortunately, as well, because I don't want to get copyrighted. Because I've been doing random live streams, years ago with some of my friends from the Google Plus days, and as I did look at the videos and the descriptions, that they got copyrighted because I was playing some actual music quite loudly in the background, and I was not happy about that. But they are still on the channel. It brings back some nostalgia and memories for me that I had some pretty fun times to talk to other people that are as interested as myself into, talking about music and sharing what we love, and, to expand our opinions and tastes. So that is one of the best things. It's just that the interactions that I have with some people are just amazing. I am all open. I'm open minded for anybody that wants to, share what they like to share, either in a video or just in a comment. That's just the way it works. Because I'm very happy to be with people that I am very close to, and to become friends with these people on YouTube, and just to have a good time. Drinking water is, to me, one of the things that I love to do, because I am at the process of trying to lose some weight, and to change myself up a little bit. And I did shave recently, that I didn't mention at all from a few of my previous videos, but it had to be done. I never had it shaved off at all. I just had it trimmed because I never liked the feeling of getting my beard and mustache shaved. So, if anybody is still watching, please let me know how this goes with the audio. If there's going to be, any glitching or audio problems, let me know. Or if everything's been very good and progressing nicely, let me know, because I really am hoping that this stream is at a good shape. So I'm just looking down on my phone, guys, just to see if everything is still correct. Yeah, seems to be. Seems to be pretty good. Yeah, it's working pretty nicely. Viewers, type anything you want. Anything you want to say and talk about. So, I've been rambling so much for close to 15 minutes. And, just, I don't want to just, be very interactively awkward by just, talking and not see any comment at all, because I'm just trying to spice things up. Sorry, guys, that this is like really quiet, because I'm still really interested and hopefully, um, just being optimistic to see what you guys would like to say. Just type anything. I know I said it a lot, but just want to get involved. Want to get involved with you guys, and we'll just chat. In terms of what other kind of bands I've been listening to, been revisiting Jimi Hendrix, played the Band of Gypsies from the Songs for Groovy Children box set that just came out a few months ago. Really great box set. Besides, I had expressed some little issues that I had with it, but it's been mostly positive. Um, the krautrock scene, as I mentioned, listens to different bands like Amondol to Agitation Free and Michel Rotter, formerly of Noi and Harmonia, and a very early member of Kraftwerk. I haven't played Kraftwerk's music for a very long time. Can, I've been listening back to them lots. Still adore Can. They are one of my favorite bands of all time. Still, like really high, top 10 wise. And now here is an artist that I would like to listen back to, and that is Frank Zappa and Hot Rats. When I think of Frank Zappa, I just mostly think about this album because it is one of my very high favorite albums of all time, in the top 25. And I know that there is a box set out called the Hot Rats Sessions, and that I am very looking forward to have the box set in the collection. And it's quite strange that they had actually put in a board game along with the 6 discs uh, that completes the set. I'm still going to buy it, but I think I would just like to stick to the discs of material that had been recorded from the album's sessions than to have, you know, anything to do with the board game. I'm going to keep that condition of the game, mint and in great shape. But I think when it comes to just box sets in general, Zappa fans really want the music, and it is obvious, but it's the truth. Frank Zappa, with his discography just being incredibly huge, and I absolutely have not played his stuff for ages. He has made some of my other favourite albums of all time. This was the album that got me into Zappa. We're Only In It For The Money, with Jimi Hendrix at the actual photo. This was just a complete knockoff of Sgt. Pepper's by the Beatles, obviously. This was the big deal for me to really get inspired to hear some over the top, challenging, weird, even more of an experimental vibe of music. In terms of other favourites, their double album, Uncle Meat, which I have got on vinyl as well, but it's not an original, but it is on one of the Bizarre Records pressings. Stuttering. um, Here's another favourite of mine that I love, which is Burnt Weenie Sandwich. Very underrated, this one. And I think this is really one of the last classic albums with Zappa and the Mothers of Invention. And I really like the multiple different lineup changes of the Mothers after the split between Zappa and the original Mothers. But I feel that Zappa was at one of his greatest with the original lineup. Um, Here's another album that I consider to be a classic, which is the Grand Wazoo, and that is still my favourite Frank Zappa slash Mother's album cover. I absolutely adore the detail to this cover art, colourful and with so much dedication and effort that's been put into this album. Really one of the best in the jazz fusion genre. I haven't got a lot, so Zappa's discography is just a ton of different stuff, and I have always wanted to come back to Zappa because of seeing the news about the Hot Rats Sessions box set. There's still 2 people watching this. Please share this stream around, guys, and I'm still looking forward to see your comments and interact. And I know I got to stop saying that so many times, but I really want to, talk to people instead of just, rambling on to myself when there's really nothing going on. And this stream's been on for more than 20 minutes. More than 20 minutes of just, some good starts. Some good starts of the live stream. I don't see a lot of problems happening. Because when I had first clicked into this stream, there was a connection issue, but after that, it seems to be going pretty nicely. I hope I had made this public. Well, I think I did. Well, why wouldn't it? Because there's been a few people watching this. So, in terms of other albums for me to review next, besides that, I wanted to review Kid A by Radiohead very soon. I think I would like to review another one of Motorhead's albums in the future, because I know one of my friends, Andy, who is a big fan of Motorhead, and I do love Motorhead. I had reviewed Aftershock when it came out, and I reviewed Overkill, which is my favourite Motorhead album. But I would like to review some more of their albums. Obviously, Ace of Spades, which was really the first Motorhead album that I bought. And I was so interested to dive into their music more after listening to that album all the way through. Speaking of album reviews, I think I should really expand my reviews for classic albums revisited even more, because I had not been reviewing many albums that are metal related. I have done reviews on albums that are from krautrock to jazz and the rocking phase of rock albums. Reviewed tons of rock albums from my channel, but not a lot of metal stuff. And I would like to review Crack the Sky by Mastodon in the future, because that is my favourite Mastodon album, and that is still one of my very high favourite albums of all time. Top 10 wise. And I got to do part 2 of underrated classic albums, because I am really at the phase of listening to albums that not many people do love and appreciate. But there are a few albums, well, more than a few, of albums that are one of my favourites of all time that are so underappreciated. And I have a few in my mind that I would like to share next for the second part of my underrated classic albums video, because it has been a year since I had done the first one, which is pretty crazy for me to think about that. Time just, whizzes by, as everything does. It is insane for me to think about that. So I think another album to talk about is really one of the hip hop albums that I loved, and I really like to discover some more of the classic stuff of the hip hop genre from the 80s to the 90s. Of course, you got the classics. You got Nas's Illmatic, Wu-Tang Clan's 36 Chambers album, Eminem's Marshall Mathers LP, and Cypress Hill's first few albums, to some Beastie Boys. I haven't listened to Beastie Boys for a very long time either, because I've just been expanding my music taste. I think way too much, but it is fun for me to expand and to discover many new artists that I hadn't checked out before. And speaking of new artists I've discovered, I had discovered a few Caius albums, as that they were mentioned to me as a recommendation before from one of my subscribers. And I was really, really surprised by how great they sounded. And I'm going to be buying their albums in the collection, both on vinyl and on CD. And I never knew that it was the band that was around uh, with Josh, his involvement before he formed Queens of the Stone Age. I had never ever thought of that until I had looked it up. And it's pretty insane to think that he was at first, being in a heavy stoner rock and metal bands, into Queens of the Stone Age, who are, even more successful and influential. Well, Caius is influential, but when it comes to Josh's career, Queens of the Stone Age has been like the most talked about. And I do like Queens of the Stone Age, but they're not really one of the bands that I cite as like one of the best ever. And I would think that Caius is more of my kind of band that I really like to listen to more. Um, and it's sometimes pretty crazy to see band members in previous few bands that are surprisingly as successful before being in a future band that is, even more beloved and hugely popular. Um, that's why I just decided to bring up Caius and Queens of the Stone Age, and with the conversation of discovering many artists and bands I've been checking out not too long ago. Um, Stone Roses, I had been listening to their stuff as well. One of my favourite bands of all time, and I don't know if I would like to review Second Coming. And maybe I would, because they only made 2 albums. They made their classic debut self-titled back in '89, and the very underrated album of Second Coming in '95, which is to me the most underrated album ever. Tyler, Greedy Selfish 97, thank you for coming in. I was getting like a little bit worried that nobody is interested to come on down. But please share the stream around, Tyler, to anybody that's interested in music like both of us. And type anything you want. I do try my best not to, go off too long and think to myself that nobody's interested, and, make it totally awkward with some silence. But, I'm not really, not like uncomfortable, but I'm just like sometimes at this phase that I would want people to just to, come on down and say anything onto a live stream that I do, and make me feel involved with anybody instead of just, watching and not saying anything. That's really one of the weirdest things about live streaming, because I'm not like, obviously, that really, really big, popular wise on YouTube, but there's been more than 1,000 people that have subscribed to my channel, which is incredible, and it's just crazy that I'm still on this website for more than 10 years. But when it comes to live streaming, I don't think there's anybody that would like, to, stay long for a live stream, because maybe they've got something else planned, or they just want to, check it out for the sake of it for a few minutes and then just go off. I don't know why I'm talking like this, but when it comes to a live stream that I that I like to, post and share to anybody. I want to feel involved. I just don't want to be like some random guy rambling on to himself without anybody that's interactive to message in the comments section of anything at all. I guess that's like a little tangent that I had in mind, and I apologize for that if it's like really bugging you. I'm just, sometimes quite, I guess, a little bit awkward, but I'm trying to, not get into that feeling. Tyler, what do you think of Lamb of God and their upcoming record? I really like Lamb of God. They are one of my favourite bands. I have a few of albums from theirs in the discography. Pretty much almost halfway through. But I do have New American Gospel to one of their beloved albums, Ashes of the Wake, which is not my favourite Lamb of God album, but it is one of their top best. Sacrament, which is my favourite Lamb of God album. There are a few underrated gems on this one as well. I really like that one a lot. Wrath, which I bought when it came out. It was one of my early introductions to Lamb of God, released in this digipack form. Very nice. And it was a brilliant album. And Resolution. And it's very, I think it's quite overlooked because some of the reception that this album was receiving at the time wasn't as positive. But I think there are some very good tracks onto this album, and I wouldn't see it as one of the best of the decade. I have also listened to their album Sturm und Drang, which is a very good album that I think it's better than Resolution. I rated Resolution quite a bit too highly when I first reviewed that album. So I think Resolution is still underrated. It's not one of their best albums because I think with records like Ashes of the Wake to Sacrament, they are way better albums in terms of just songwriting, production, and the whole sound of the bands. That is like their best periods. Their first album, Burn the Priest, is an excellent death metal record. Yes, they were a death metal band, and I actually had not listened to Burn the Priest yet. And I know they've made a covers album with Burn the Priest a few years ago, and I have some comments from people that I've seen that they're quite mixed about it, but I haven't dived into that one yet. But thank you for the few comments so far, Tyler. Keep them coming. I've seen people compare Resolution to the Great Southern Trendkill. I think with Resolution, it is an album that I really liked at the time, but if I want to look back at it now, I think I will still enjoy it, but it's not going to be like as much of a big praised feeling when I had first listened to it, that I gave it quite a bit of praise. I think The Great Southern Trendkill is very underrated as well. To me, it is one of Pantera's best albums. I would prefer that album over their last album, their final record. So you just cannot beat some of the Pantera albums. And I know that some people are not fans of the band, which is totally okay. It's fine by me. But Pantera were one of those bands that I had discovered when I was diving into metal music. And I remember seeing the 5 Minutes Alone music video, and I was just pretty much hooked, and seeing other videos on the internet as well, like Walk to Domination and Cowboys from Hell, I'm Broken, Revolution is My Name. I have a few of their albums too, but I think the best Pantera album is easily Vulgar Display of Power, which is to me still one of my high favorite albums of all time. I think Pantera are just one of those bands that it's quite an underrated band for some people that have been like a long time supporter of metal, listening and loving to the obvious great of heavy metal, but not giving some modern metal bands at the time enough credit. Like others, Korn to Slipknot, Deftones, because I think there are some modern bands out there that I really like, that are one of my favourites, like Korn and Slipknot, obviously, and Deftones, another one of my favourite bands. So I think Pantera are, yes, they are massively successful, well, were and still are to this very day, but when it comes to some of the people's reactions, um, they don't really give Pantera enough credit. And I think it's just really because of Phil Anselmo and just his behaviour. But I think with Pantera being one of the bands I've discovered and loved, I really had been fascinated with their sound, and especially with Dimebag Darrell. Dimebag Darrell was my favourite metal guitar player of all time until Tony Iommi, but Dimebag still one of my top favourite metal guitar players. Tony Iommi is like the biggest inspiration for me when it comes to just learning some stuff from his playing style, and his legato technique is insane, and the vibrato is really good, very bluesy on a lot of Sabbath's tracks. But I think Dimebag Darrell is still a big inspiration as well, along with Chuck Schuldiner, to obviously the guys from Iron Maiden, Dave Murray, Yannick Gers, and Adrian Smith. Mick Thompson and Jim Root from Slipknot, who I still consider as a very high influence for me as just metal guitar players in general. The two of them together, they are just some very fun, energetic, and just so brilliant, highly talented guitar players in their own right. Darren Malakian from System of a Down being one of my earliest influences. Love him very much as a guitar player, though he's not like obviously very technical and um, too over the top, but I love Darren's simplicity. I tried getting into Deftones, but I could never really get into them besides a few songs. That is the thing that some people would say about Deftones, because they were expanding their music later on after the records of White Pony, because White Pony and Around the Fur are two of their most popular albums. But in terms of the albums that I like a lot after White Pony, Koino Yokon, that's really one of the best Deftones albums. And I would recommend that album because it's not always just heavy, because they had been experimenting into some texture and soundscapes in the music later on. A little bit of a shoegazy-ish environment on that album as well. And I really like Koino Yokon. I haven't got that album yet in the collection, which is surprising. And I have heard good things about Gore. I have seen a few tracks from that album, but I haven't heard all of them yet. So Deftones are definitely a band that I should really come back to. I have a few. The Adrenaline album, very, very good debut album, although I find the production to be a little issue taking for me. Not a fan of the album's production, but I think the best Deftones produced album is either White Pony or Around the Fur. I do have Around the Fur and White Pony on CD, and the self-titled and the Back to School Mini Maggot EP. Guitar Bang. Check out Gary Moore record live in London. Stuttering again. Fuck's sakes. Sorry about that. Yes, Gary Moore. I have to come back to Gary Moore, and he's another one of my favourite guitar players of all time. And out of all of the guitar players that I really am trying to learn to expand my playing and get every note heard and perfectly played with fast attack skills on the guitar, Gary's just really difficult. He's the hardest guitar player that I've ever heard for me to try and get a lot of my fast playing properly cleaned up and heard. I mean, I do love to play shreddy, fast lead playing, but when it comes to Gary Moore, he's one of the guitar players that perfects that, like Paul Gilbert, for example. Gary Moore is a big inspiration on my guitar work as well, and I have not a lot of his albums. I have a few on vinyl, Still Got the Blues, and I have a few of his 80s albums. So I'm trying to think of the other ones in my head that I've got, but they're just not working. So I'm gonna have a look. Guitar Bang, thank you for the comment. Type some more if you want. As I will look up some of the 80s stuff that Gary Moore had released that I have got in the collection. Still Got the Blues, and I also got After Hours, his follow-up to that album on CD, which is excellent. Very good album from start to finish. I really, really like the Back to the Blues album as well from 2001, which is very underrated. Shows Gary Moore at one of his return to the blues roots. So his discography is pretty big. I have Dirty Fingers on vinyl, and Corridors of Power. That was the one I was trying to think of. And I have Wild Frontier. Got surprisingly 2 copies of that album on vinyl, and I think Dark Days in Paradise is really his most underrated. It's half of his bluesy-ish sound, but with some electronic music with it. And it's one of his least loved or least liked albums. I really like that album. Be Mindful and Wise, thank you for tuning in, mate. Favourite Fear Factory album? Mine would be a tie between Demanufacture and Obsolete. I think my favourite Fear Factory album, for nostalgia reasons, if I can see it, unless it's with the other pile of CDs over there, I've been, tidying up to clear out some more space from my CD shelves. I need to buy some more CD shelves for my CDs. But my favourite Fear Factory album, to get back into the question, is Digimortal. Digimortal's my favourite Fear Factory album, and I really, really like the simplicity of it. And obviously, it's not as like a classic for many fans like the previous two, which I love as much. I love Digimortal as much as Obsolete and Demanufacture. They're one of my favourite bands of all time as well. And again, that Fear Factory being one of my favourite bands, they were such a nostalgia trip. I was discovering Fear Factory from a game called Demolition Racer, one of my top 10 games of all time, and I had discovered Fear Factory from the instrumental versions of Machine de Base, which is from the the Hay Files compilation later on, and a different version of Invisible Wounds Never End from Digimortal, and there was an earlier version of that song in that game. Um, some more comments. Guitar Bang, the album with Thin Lizzy was great. I haven't listened to a lot of Thin Lizzy's discography yet, mate, but I know that Gary was a big part in Thin Lizzy's history, even though that he made, I think, only one album with the band, but he was still a big member in the band's history. And with Phil and Gary together, brilliant, beautiful combination. You know, out in the fields to Parisian walkways. Remember that band, Clawfinger, that had an industrial sound? Clawfinger, I haven't heard of that band yet, mate. I would like to check them out. But if I forget, which I do a lot, I do forget things quite a lot. Remind me in the one of the future videos in the comments. Tyler again, I love Fear Factory, especially their 1993 to 2004 output. They and Static X got me into more industrial type music. Static X, I do like that band. It really was a shame about Wayne Static, though. They're not one of the bands that I listens to so much as Fear Factory. But another band that really got me into that kind of music was Rammstein. Rammstein, another one of my favorite bands of all time. And if you have not seen them live at all, you're missing out. And I mean that. You are horribly missing out. They're one of the most exciting and just, one of the most insanely great, catchy bands to see live. Very fun stuff. Guitar Bang and the new Sepultura record. Wow, it's amazing. Lots of different styles and atmospheres in the playing. When I used to think of Sepultura from the past, from my teenage self, I was targeting Derek Green as a crap singer. I know, because I wasn't in an open-minded phase and mindset at that time. But I really like Derek Green's vocals the more I start to appreciate his tone. Obviously, with the Cavalera brothers in Sepultura's history, that is really more of the era that I always adore the most. And that is the era that I would like to remember the band for. But Derek Green with Sepultura and with the rest of the band, very overlooked, and to me still not as strong. But I have Danta 21 on CD. I think that is a really good album. But since the new Sepultura album is out, I would like to come into their later discography because I have heard all of the Cavalera era from Sepultura, and I have that era on CD, not on vinyl yet, but I do have Chaos AD on vinyl, but I think it's on an unofficial release, which is a bit of a pain in the ass, but the record still sounds pretty great. Tyler again, Static X are actually releasing a new album this year. Are they? I didn't know that. I thought the band's just going to be over after Wayne Static, after he passed. So I'm quite surprised because Wayne Static is Static X because he's really the guy that formed the band, and I think it's still good though that the band's continuing on without their frontman and guitar player, but I think Wayne Static was really the guy that brought the whole band up into their sound that they got and got some critical success. They're not one of the bands that I dive into so much, but I have respect for them. Be Mindful and Wise. If anybody's that's not commenting at all, that I'm not familiar with, comment. I would like to see some new faces. Well, some new commenters. Be Mindful and Wise. Which era of Cannibal Corpse do you prefer? The Chris Barnes era or the Corpse Grinder era? Um, I think the best era of Cannibal Corpse is really. I really like the Chris Barnes era. I mean, Tomb of the Mutilated, their best album, and I really like Butchered at Birth a lot to Eaten Back to Life. But I think with Tomb of the Mutilated, that album really defined the band. It defines the band production wise, and the sound of Chris was at his greatest before he started to sound like shit with 6 Feet Under. and and with the Bleeding, I like that album a lot as well, but his tone of his vocals were, really raw and less less perfect and more of a guttural, raspy tone. It's not as strong, but I think that the Corpse Grinder era is really the best era. And I think one of Cannibal Corpse's best albums with George is Bloodthirst. Bloodthirst is another underrated classic for me. One of my favourite albums in their discography, and The Wretched Spawn as well. Evisceration Plague, that one is excellent as well. I like that album a lot. And Torture, Skeletal Domain is really good, but I think the best Cannibal Corpse albums, the classics for me, Tomb of the Mutilated and Bloodthirst, but other high favourites, as I said, Butchered at Birth and the Wretched Spawn. Tyler, about Static X, they got a new singer and have been doing live shows. The new album is going to have leftover Wayne vocals. Okay, that's pretty interesting. Maybe I would like to give Static X a go and see what they can come up with on their new album. See what they are going to present to the world. Excuse me. Guitar Bang again. 2 comments. Seen Static X 2 nights in a row with Down. Great tight band. I was shocked at their playing. Sounded like a machine live. It was great. Hey guys, check out the latest Mayhem album. Damon, it rocks. I really think I should come back to black metal. Now that you've mentioned Mayhem, I actually pointed at this box. Now that you've pointed Mayhem, there you go. Mayhem, one of the best bands in black metal, and their debut album is one of the classics. So I think I'm at the stage now that I should really come back and review many more metal albums. And when it comes to the black metal albums that I talked about, I had reviewed In the Night Side Eclipse by Emperor for Classic Albums Revisited because of its 25th anniversary at that time. And that still is one of the best in the genre. But my favourite black metal band is Dark Throne. I love Transylvania Hunger, the very raw production and the lo-fi sound, the vocals from the screams, the raspy raw tone to it, and the muffled but distorted tone. It's very good. Very good production in my eyes, as that black metal at that time was at that kind of sound or production, like other black metal albums at the time that are like produced in a similar vein, like Mayhem's debut. But my favourite Dark Throne album is Panzerfaust, and I actually have got Old Star that I need to dive into. I need to dive into the later albums in their discography, because I have seen a few comments from some of the fans saying that some of their latest stuff is as strong or as one of the best in their career. So I really like some black metal bands that have their own sound and atmosphere, like those two that I've mentioned. Burzum, I have been interested in Varg's material with Burzum from his black metal phase, but I think I should come back to the albums where he went into ambient. Ambient being one of my favorite genres of all time. Though I did not like Sol Austi Manifestan uh, at that time, and I regarded it as one of the worst albums of 2014, I think, because I didn't like the album at all, almost entirely. But now that I got into ambient music because of Brian Eno, and with others like Aphex Twin to Steve Reich and Jean-Michel Jarre with his ambient electronic stuff and Tangerine Dream, I should really give the different sounding albums from Burzum some more credit and dive into them properly all the way through. Be mindful and wise. Since you mentioned black metal, what are your thoughts on Immortal? I haven't heard of a lot of Immortal stuff, but I do like the sound of the band. I haven't got a lot of it in the collection, black metal in general, unfortunately, but I I actually have um, Cradle of Filth's Midian. I know that's more on a symphonic metal phase, but they put in a bit of that black metal sound. Well, they were black metal earlier on from Blasphemy of Evil Made Flesh. No, sorry. The Principle, their debut album. Uh, why did I mess that up? I don't know. Blasphemy Made Flesh. That was Cryptopsy. Duh. Um, what's the debut album called? Um, I'll have to look it up. I'm so sorry, guys. I can't believe I have fucked that up. Um, Principle. Oh, the debut album from Cradle of Filth. That's very black metal oriented, and I need to I need to dive into some more of the atmospheric black metal stuff as well, because I really like Death Heaven a lot and Caladan Brood. Um, I like Summoning a lot as well. I think that is a genre that I sometimes would prefer to listen to and love than just, the classic standard black metal sound. Not that I have anything against black metal, obviously, because I've mentioned some of the classics already. The Principle of Evil Made Flesh. That was the title. Now that I've been corrected from my dumb brain, yeah, The Principle of Evil Made Flesh, that debut album. That is like very black metal sounding. Um, Even though it says extreme, but black metal is one of those genres that is involved in the extreme side of metal. So sorry about that, guys. You know, how unprofessional was that? Not that I want to be too professional, but I can't believe that I just simply forgot what it was called. But anyways, anybody else who wants to join in? Share your thoughts on comments that you have in mind to share. Tyler, have you heard Dissection's Storm of the Light's Bane? I have not, but if I forget, please let me know in the comments. So, there's more than 2 people. I think there's 5 or 4 viewers that are watching this now. So, I want to see some new faces to type anything. Ask away. Any more music-related stuff? As I just repeat the same stuff that I had said earlier on, and I just got, really awkward when when it started, really, until the comments from you guys that have commented so far did pop up after like half an hour or 25 minutes. And we are now 1 hour into this live stream. I don't know how long I'm going to do it for, but I think it is a very good start. Thank you very much to a few of you guys, a few of you subscribers. So I'll say this before, I said this before and I'll say it one more time. Please share this stream around to one of your friends and recommend it to anybody that is interested in talking about music, because that's what I like to do. I like to be involved and interact with people interactively about music, as I just repeat, the same shit over and over again. That's really one of the habits that I have, which I need to stop. Be mindful and wise again. Thoughts on the Black Dahlia murder? I don't mind the Black Dahlia murder. They are a really good sounding band. I respect them a lot. They're not one of the bands that I'm like really indulged, like really connected with, be a big fan of them. I remember the time that Everblack came out, and some of my friends on YouTube who used to do album reviews were raving about that album. But I think the Black Dahlia Murder are a very talented band with their own sound and style of music. Guitar Bang, what's your guitar live stage setup when you gig? My live stage setup, whatever. 2 of my Les Pauls, and I actually have my pedal board with me because I've been practicing some of the songs for one of the shows this Sunday, and I'm not really a guy that is so obsessed with a lot of pedals. I have like a comfortable amount of pedals, but here's my pedal board there. So the red one is an MXR compressor, the Dynacomp. This one is the Jimi Hendrix Dunlop Octavia Fuzz. I decided to put in those 2 different coloured pieces on top of the main pedal switches. The main top of the pedal of the main pedal piece of this pedal is broken, so I couldn't find it. I don't know why I'm stuttering. Anyway, this one is the Fuzz Face, the smaller version, smaller release design. The 2 at the top, Boss Digital Delay DD7 and a Boss Chorus CE2W Wazacraft chorus pedal. The wah-wah is the Crybaby 535Q and the Chromatic Tuner TU3, and a pedal that I had bought not too long ago. I actually have the box of it over there. Since I'm one of those people that loves to experiment with tone and the pedals I've got, this is my latest purchase. This is the TC Electronic Viscous Vibe, and I absolutely love this pedal. I was thinking about buying a Univibe pedal from MXR, but I have an MXR pedal already. Well, most of the pedals on my pedal board are Boss pedals, but I love this pedal. Definitely suits the sound of me to become, so obsessed with it, along with my improvised solos. That's very Jimi Hendrix inspired, because obviously Jimi Hendrix being my favorite guitar player of all time, most of my playing is heavily inspired by him, along with Peter Green, Danny Kirwan, Paul Kossoff, Stevie Ray Vaughan, David Gilmour. So I really do love this pedal, and hopefully it'll be on my pedal board along with the other pedals. I had actually done a gig by removing my chorus pedal off and put this pedal on it, and it sounds really good. Amazing sound. The amplification that I use when I used to gig, I use I used to have the Fender Hot Rod Deluxe. I still gig now, but since I think 2.5 or 3 years now, I gig with a Fender Hot Rod DeVille. And also, I'm going to give you a little bit of a heads up. I know I mentioned about my band before, but be sure to check my band out, Hard Graft Band, all in one word, on YouTube. You can see some clips of me and my band performing various songs from different places. And you can subscribe to the channel, and that's all I could say. That's all I could say until I'm going to be making a full video on it. We also have Facebook as well. But that's just a little quick plug that I recommend anybody to check out the band. Tyler, I would love to see your recent live performances, but unfortunately I live across the pond. I know, it's pretty crazy. It's pretty crazy that some of you guys would like to see me live and to meet me in person, but um, things just don't work out that easily, which is very sad. Because I would like to see, a lot of people that are subscribers, to hang out with me in person, and we'll just, chill and have a great time. Guitar Bang. I just bought the Fender Jimi Hendrix model. It's so cool, and yeah, Jimmy's one of the greats. You know, what could you say about Jimi Hendrix? Very obvious words, but he stands true to me as the greatest guitar player of all time. Overrated or not, for many people, he was and is the best, the greatest ever. Oh, another influence for me is John Squire from the Stone Roses, because I was listening to how he plays the guitar and does his lead playing on the two Stone Roses albums, the self-titled and Second Coming. As I mentioned way earlier on, before nobody commented. And his playing was just incredible. One of my favourites in improvisation as well. Be Mindful and Wise. Again, Slipknot, self-titled, or Iowa. The self-titled album, my friend. My favourite Slipknot album ever since that I was really so obsessed with the band. I love Iowa as much. And after seeing Slipknot live a few weeks ago, that is just sick. It was really one of the best shows I've ever attended in my life. And it was the first time, as I said from my concert review, that it was my first time seeing the band in 5 years. Because I had seen Slipknot twice before. Once with the original lineup, the second one with the Grey Chapter era, when Chris was still in the band, and Jay, that was with the band, and still is, obviously. But now it was the first time for Slipknot to see them in this lineup when I caught them live. So, yeah, Slipknot, self-titled, still my favourite, and always will be. And can you believe it as well that Slipknot as a band is going to be 25 years old? 25 years of being a band ever since they were formed from Des Moines, Iowa. It is insane. I am 25 now, but I've just made a sudden realization that Slipknot were formed in 95 and I was born in late 94. So I'm like some months older than Slipknot as the band. I don't know. I don't know why I had to say it, but it's just, oh, it's pretty crazy. It's crazy in my opinion. um, some more comments. Tyler, what do you think of Made Feed Kill Repeat? Very underrated. Very underrated demo. I still have the copy of it on CD, but it is fake version of Made Feed Kill Repeat. I'm not going to buy an original because people sell it for a lot of money. But if any Slipknot collectors out there that are watching this, don't buy a vinyl version of this, because there are people that are selling a bootleg vinyl of this with a lot of money that are totally not real. There was no vinyl pressings of this demo whatsoever. Thoughts on these death metal bands? Deicide, Obituary, and Morbid Angel by Be Mindful and Wise. I really still love the death metal genre. Deicide, I do like the sound of the band, but I cannot stand Glenn Benton. He just always boasts on himself, saying that he's a Satanist and he hates God, and you know, I just cannot stand Glenn as a person. He's just one of those really. He's just one of those arrogant assholes I just never ever cared for. Obituary, I do like that band. I do like the earlier albums, but when Inked in Blood came out, I did not like it. I didn't like Inked in Blood. I actually did regard Inked in Blood as, I think, the second worst album of 2015. I didn't like the sound of the vocals to the songwriting, and just, it's not the kind of sound that I had wanted to think about when it comes to Obituary. And I respect that some bands in metal and in death metal in general that like to go in a different direction, like Cannibal Corpse, for example. But those albums from the late 90s to early 2000s from Cannibal Corpse, to me, are better than what Obituary did with Inked in Blood. But I still like Obituary. And Morbid Angel. Morbid Angel, one of my favourites in the genre. Altars of Madness, one of my favourite classic metal debuts of all time. Blessed Are the Sick is fantastic. Speaking of Morbid Angel, I need to review Illud Divinium Insanus, because I need to talk about that album in full detail on my segment of Sabotage Bad Albums, where I'm going to be reviewing albums that I consider to be one of the worst of all time, why I don't like them, in a very opinionated and open-minded way, why I don't like those albums. I have reviewed Corey Feldman's Angelic to the Core, and Tyler recommended that one first. I am glad that I did do that one out of the way first. The second one was Lulu by Lou Reed and Metallica, but I did respect that album more, but I still really don't like it at all. So, yeah. Lulu was just an experiment that I respect for what Lou Reed and Metallica had in mind, but its execution was just absolutely monotonous. But Illud Divinium Insanus is another album that I need to talk about. Band of Gypsys record 50 years anniversary. I actually looked at the trailer on the Jimi Hendrix YouTube channel. I don't think I am interested at all to buy a 50th anniversary of Band of Gypsys, because, when it comes to the Hendrix license, there are some releases that people give it criticism for, calling it a cash grab, and it doesn't include everything, like the Songs for Groovy Children box set that I've got. I did say some criticisms on that box set, but I really like that set a lot. And one of the shows that was on that set was the first Filmore show that we've already got separately a few years ago, and one of the other shows from the set is really the first live version of Band of Gypsies. And I'm just going to say that I'm very happy with what I've got for Band of Gypsies. The original classic live album, and I've got this again on vinyl, but on a later pressing. The first Phil Maurice show on CD and on vinyl as well, and the Songs for Groovy Children box set. So I think that is enough for me to have for the Band of Gypsies. And I would like to collect more Jimi Hendrix in the collection, compilations and various releases after The Experience. I have the trilogy of The Experience's albums on CD and vinyl. Guitar Bang again, Irish band 10 Tom Slug, check them out. What is that band? I need to know. I don't know what genre that is. 10 Tom Slug sounds metal. That Angelic 2, the core review was hilarious. Yeah. Actually, when I had stopped recording that video to wrap it up, my head was getting worse. I had a bit of a headache after my rants with that album. It was not cool. I had to just take it easy. I had to just slow my temper down. It was not fun, alright, Tyler? Be mindful and wise. Bob Dylan, Highway 61 Revisited, or Blonde on Blonde. Blonde on Blonde is, to me, Bob Dylan's greatest album. Still one of my top favourites of all time in double albums and, in just favourite albums of all time in general. Highway 61 Revisited is another classic. There are others that I consider to be classics, even Nashville Skyline, that I consider to be one of the best in Dylan's discography. Obviously, he had made so many albums. He had made, loads, like Neil Young, for example, who I absolutely admire as well. Guitar Bang, I have USA Original on LP, that Machine Gun song, way ahead of its time. Yes, Machine Gun. Foxy Lady is my favourite Jimi Hendrix track, but Machine Gun, that is his greatest guitar soloing he's ever done, and my favourite guitar solo of all time. And some of the inspirational solos that I do when I play Voodoo Child live, it was primarily inspired by that song, Machine Gun. And Miles Davis, here's a fact, Miles Davis wanted to jam with Hendrix because he loved that solo of Machine Gun so much. Sadly, it just didn't come to plan. Miles Davis being one of my favourite genre exploring jazz artists of all time. So, I need to review a Miles Davis record, actually. Because Bitches Brew is going to be 50 years old in March this year. Holy shit, mate. Bitches Brew is just one of my favourites, if not my favourite jazz record of all time. And other jazz classics, artists from Charles Mingus to Mahavishnu Orchestra, John Coltrane, Ornette Coleman. And I really am just so pleased that I am very fascinated in the jazz scene and the later avant-garde jazz, the jazz fusion scene entirely as well, because I love to hear so many different styles of genres. 10 Ton Slug is a heavy sludge metal band, okay. They supported BLS in over here in 2017, Black Label Society. I need to check them out, mate. So, cheers for the recommendation. Uh, that note he hits on the 17th fret and lets it ring out. Yes, that sustain with the uni vibe. That note was really a defining moment as like one of the best long sustained notes in recorded music. Machine Gun is a piece of music, and it may be very simple as a protest, and the whole thing's just a jam. The jam was just so phenomenal, phenomenal jamming, and it was really one of the best that got me inspired to explore and solo across the fretboard with the pedals that I've got. It was just one of the masterpieces. Machine Gun is really Hendrix's greatest track he's ever done live. Be Mindful and Wise. Thoughts on melodic death metal and these bands: In Flames, Children of Bodom, and Amon Amarth. Guitar Bang, that note was magical. It was. Melodic death metal is a genre that I like, but I think it is quite underrated. But I'm not like a big, heavy listener of that kind of subgenre. I really, really like Amon Amarth. They're one of my favourites, if not probably my favourite in the melodic death metal genre. Early In Flames as well. The Jester Race. Where's that? There it is. The Jester Race, my favourite in their discography. And Horacle, which is just as great. Very good. Very good album. I have here Lunar Strain, but it includes the Subterraneans EP as well. Yeah, Subterranean EP. I do like Early In Flames a lot. I remember seeing the music videos back in the old days of the 2000s of Take This Life to Trigger, Calm Clarity. But I think I lost total interest with In Flames after Siren Charms. Siren Charms to me was absolutely terrible. I really did not like that album that well at all, that I just gave up on In Flames. I respect the band's decision and choices of what they wanted to do from the album of Sounds of a Playground Fading and A Sense of Purpose onwards, but it's not the kind of sound that I prefer to think about when it comes to the band. Children of Bodom is a band that I had actually seen live because they supported Slipknot when I had first seen them. I do like Children of Bodom, but not enough for me to be a fan of them. So, no disrespect to the band at all. But I do like the melodic death metal genre, though I haven't got a lot. And that I don't listen to a lot of it in the experiences of listening to, many styles of metal music. Because the most subgenres that I listen to when it comes to metal music are black metal, death metal, thrash metal, heavy metal, atmospheric black metal, some symphonic metal, and some technical death metal. But I do like melodic death metal and a bit of metalcore as well. I do like metalcore. Killswitch Engage, brilliant band. Same goes with Trivium. What do you think of Catatonia? I haven't dived into that band enough, mate. I have heard very good things about Catatonia. I should really need a sip of my water because my throat's pretty sore and dry. How are we doing? Streaming very comfortably. Also, guys that are still commenting, let me know how the stream is going. Is the connection okay? Have there been any issues, any lagging or glitching, whatever? Let me know. Be mindful and wise. Have you heard of Korn's newest album, The Nothing? That is another album that I need to check out. I did not check out The Serenity of Suffering either, but I have heard good things about The Nothing. And you say it's their best album since Take a Look in the Mirror. Take a Look in the Mirror is, I think it's very underrated. And it was not well received by many critics and fans, apparently. But, Korn still being a big influence, still one of my favourites of all time. How many times do I have to say of all time when it comes to just, a lot of conversations? But I am still a big fan of Korn. Take a Look in the Mirror is really, I think it's really enjoyable. It's not strong of an album. But I think with The Nothing, if I really like it a lot, I think it would be their best album since Issues. Because I think Issues is a very strong album. I think that is really the last great Korn album, and Untouchables as well. But I liked Korn 3. I liked Korn 3, Remember Who You Are, back in the day as well. And the Paradigm Shift. I actually think the Untitled album is really underappreciated. The Path of Totality is a piece of shit, in my opinion. I don't like The Path of Totality. But if you like it, there's nothing wrong with your opinion. And, for any Korn fan that loves to defend it, big props to you. But I just do not like dubstep at all, one bit. I don't like the genre. It's just music to my ears. The song Connected, check it out, please. Arcturus, never heard of that kind of stuff before, mate. Hellhammer from Mayhem on drums. Okay. Hellhammer from Mayhem. Really good. Really, really good. Need to dive into that then. Stream Perfect here in Ireland. Oh, you're from Ireland. I didn't know that. Top of the morning to you. I'm not going to try and be offensive to do some Irish accent. I'm not going to do that. But I do love some of the Irish folks. Be mindful and wise. The Who, Tommy or Quadrophenia? It's funny you say that because I had just revisited The Who for the first time in a few years. I was playing The Who Sell Out quite a few times and I love that album. Tommy, one of the best albums in concept rock operas to, double albums in general, but Quadrophenia is to me The Who's greatest. Absolutely my favourite double album of all time and my personal favourite Who record. That album defines The Who at their finest, with Pete Townsend as a songwriter, Roger Daltrey on lead vocals, Keith Moon on drums, to John Entwistle's bass. Everything about Quadrophenia is top notch from start to finish, and I still admire that record. It brings back so many memories because my mom's brother, my uncle, his favourite band's The Who, and whenever we go on about The Who, he just, sing a few songs from their repertoire and mentions some tracks from various albums. The Who are a top three favourite band ever. That's how much I absolutely love The Who. I'm not a big fan of Face Dancers, which is for me my least favourite album from their discography. It's hard, very underrated, because there are some good stuff on there, besides a few fillers. I like Endless Wire for a bit. I need to buy their self-titled latest album, which actually came out on my 25th birthday last year, which is really surprising. And also, when the album came out, "Beggar's Banquet" from the Rolling Stones um, was like 51 years old. So that's a piece of rock and roll history for you. um, Tommy is amazing. I like the Who's Sold Out and Quadrophenia a lot. Quadrophenia, I could really go on about it. I love the movie as well. I love the movie. Quadrophenia is one of those films that I just, loved watching and hearing the Who's music, and to see, Jimmy the Mod doing his thing, going through difficulties in life and his addictions to pills, and with his with his crew of his friends of the Mods versus the Rockers, you can't beat Quadrophenia. Be mindful and wise. Who do you prefer more, Frank Zappa or Captain Beefheart? Frank Zappa and Captain Beefheart are totally different solo artists in their own right of originality, but I do love them both. I'm more of a person that is Frank Zappa fanatic filled more than Captain Beefheart. Captain Beefheart, I seriously think that he's very underrated because he's a really challenging artist. Not because of Trap Mask Replica, but I think that Captain Beefheart's a truly adventurous artist that people should really explore his own craft. And there are some albums before and after Trap Mask Replica and Lick My Dick House of Baby that are bluesy. Clear Spot is my second favourite Captain Beefheart album. And with the other records, Safe as Milk, very great, strong record, to some of the later stuff, like Dock at the Radar Station, and I think that his discography is mostly excellent. Though I don't like Unconditionally Guaranteed. I think that was just very below average, just absolute tosh. And Blue Jeans and Moonbeams is nowhere near as great either. But Captain Beefheart, with the rest of his albums, they are great. Some that that contain some of my favourite songs of all time by any experimental artist. But Frank Zappa is a musician that I love so much. His discography is just massive. Many classic albums, as I just had been showing by myself earlier, with Hot Rats, We're Only In It For The Money, Uncle Meat, Burnt Winnie Sandwich, The Grand Wazoo. Those are my favourite Zappa albums. And the underrated Bongo Fury with Captain Beefheart and The Mothers of Invention. To me, that's another classic of live albums, but I love them both. Tyler, it's a shame that Pete never got to finish Lifehouse. Lifehouse was a project of material that would eventually be ended up on some of the compositions for Who's Next. Lifehouse, I would have loved to see, you know, everything completed with Townsend's originality and with his um, explorative vibe for another concept record before Quadrophenia, but it just didn't come to plan. And I need to check out his solo material as well. He's one of my favorite musicians of all time. One of the best inspirations for me on the guitar as well. One of my all-time favorites. Black Napkins Live. Black Napkins. Excellent song by Frank Zappa from the Zoo Allures album. But I think some of his guitar playing live was amazing. Amazing stuff. Dweezil Zappa really still continues his dad's memory as a musician, and just, as a big, successful, and unique artist. I had seen Dweezil live with his band, Dweezil and the Mothers, and it was just incredible. It was inside the Birmingham Town Hall. They played various songs from early Zappa to later Zappa, and it was incredible, outstanding stuff. Dweezil Zappa, incredible. Such an amazing guitar player as well. Be Mindful and Wise, what do you think is the most overrated metal band? Mine would be Five Finger Death Punch. Five Finger Death Punch, I would have to say that they were a band that I did like. They were an early guilty pleasure, but I think after the albums of uh, The Wrong Side of Heaven and The Righteous Side of Hell, that was when I lost interest. Their songwriting just got too generic, really predictable and repetitive that it just got so boring, and I stopped following them entirely. I did like early Five Finger Death Punch, like the Way of the Fist album, which I've actually still got on CD, but I don't listen to them anymore. But but I think with the most overrated metal band for me, that's really hard to say one. Um, but I think Five Finger Death Punch could be one of them in my list. They are releasing a new album called Fate, a capital F and 8, Fate, together. But I think I have no idea which band I would pick as the most overrated metal band. So it's quite difficult for me to answer that. But I think with overrated rock bands, I think, well, just rock as well, the most overrated band, in my opinion, is Guns N' Roses. It was his smile, pretty much. Yeah. I guess it was his Pete Townshend's Smile. Smile is a brilliant album, gorgeous Beach Boys album, especially with the box set of the Smile sessions. My goodness. I think Quadrophenia is Pete's. To me, it's like Pete's Sergeant Pepper, and as with Pete Townshend's quote, he regarded the Kings of the Village Green Preservation Society's Ray Davis's Sergeant Pepper. I heard Megadeth were supporting them. Should be other way round. I don't think so. I don't agree. I mean, Five Finger Death Punch supporting Megadeth, I think that's really strange. And also, it was brilliant news to see that Dave Mustaine is cancer free. That was wonderful news. And speaking of Megadeth again, I need to review their albums. I am such an awful hypocrite. I did say that I was going to come back to bands' discographies, but I didn't because of other reviews that I was thinking of them more than the incomplete discographies. I'm absolutely horrible. So I need to review the albums from Euthanasia all the way up to Dystopia, although I did review Super Collider when that was out. Um, yeah, that's really weird. Megadeth has been around for much longer and are much better. Um, Five Finger Death Punch is an involvement in the modern metal scene, since the 2000s, but I could still say that they are one of the bands that are around as long, obviously not as long as the big four of Sabbath and Judas Priest, etc., but I think it's still great that Five Finger had been around for a long time, for more than 15 years. So, Guitar Bang. Check out Chris Pollan's Metropolis's solo record. I would like to check that out. Oh, and you spelled that wrong. Don't worry about that, mate. Chris Poland. I think I've heard the name before. I need to check out these recommendations you have been sending in. So far, guys, this live stream is excellent. I thought I was just gonna, end it because of me just being totally awkward for half an hour with nobody coming in and commenting. But you guys have really made it, worth the time to be involved. Thank you very much, and hopefully there's going to be some more new people and some subscribers to comment and say anything, just to say a question and a chat about music in this type of live stream. So thank you very much. How am I doing on time? It's 7:15. It's 7:15 in the evening, and I could do for, say, another 15 minutes or another 20. But if there's going to be some connection issues, I might have to end the stream in a very abrupt way, which I really don't want to do, because connection is an ass sometimes when you're trying to do a live stream. It just doesn't work as easy as, when you do live streams on other social medias, Facebook and Instagram. But I think with YouTube's fixes on these live streams, they've really helped a lot. And I think it's really good that this is going really, really well. You're doing great, brother. Thank you very much. Chris was in Megadeth. Yes, I know that he was in Megadeth since the Dystopia album. Chris Poland was Megadeth's original guitarist. I actually did not look at the band's lineup at all. Was Chris Poland in the first album, Killing Is My Business, Business Is Good? Yes, and he was in Peace Sells, But Who's Buying? I'll have to check that out. I'll have to check out one of his own stuff. Chris Poland was really good in Megadeth as well. But Marty Friedman, really one of the greatest guitar players of all time. Be mindful and wise. If Lady Gaga and Metallica actually did a collaboration album like what was promised 3 years ago, how would you feel about that? Would you think it turned out to be another Lulu? I don't think so, because Lulu was really Lou Reed's idea and concept, not Metallica's. And Lou Reed is a Metallica album, not just a Lou Reed album. For some people saying that it's not a Metallica album, it is a Metallica album. Sort it out and do your research. If Lady Gaga and Metallica would do a collaborative effort, I think if it would have happened, like really happened, I'll have to give it a go. But I don't know how my reaction's going to be. Lady Gaga's a really great singer. Yes, Lady Gaga is very talented singer, but I'm not a fan of her music. But what I really don't like about Lady Gaga is some of her costumes. The maid costume really pissed me off. When I was younger, I just did not like her. But the more I just thought about, being in an open-minded personality, I think Lady Gaga is a very talented musician, but I have never been a fan of her music, and I respect her as a person as well. Tyler, again, I haven't heard anything about Lady Gaga since that movie. That movie, A Star Is Born. I haven't seen that. She Was In, Came Out. I know she doesn't dress up weird anymore. Yeah, That's another thing that she hadn't done for a long time now. What about Kerry King and future solo work? Kerry King, I think he would still like to do his work as a metal musician, and since that he was in Slayer, now that the band's no more, I think he would still continue on his works and projects with other bands. I mean, Dave Lombardo now being in Mr. Bungle, does that sound like a great combination? Yes, it is. And I'm glad that Mr. Bungle's back. And Faith No More, Mr. Bungle, one of my favourite bands. I love the band. Their discography is just one of the best and original stuff. The self-titled brings back nostalgia. It is my personal favourite in their discography. It's one of the classic albums. Uh, Disco Volante, um, the second album, I really like that one so much as well. And California, two excellent albums. Would it be second-rate Slayer riffs? I don't know. Maybe he could come up with something less Slayer and something more inspired to be in a groove environment or in a effective heavy metal environment. Than just being a guitar player for one genre, because Slayer had made material that is just not thrash. So I don't know what Kerry King's really going to do now that Slayer's no more, but I think Kerry's going to be continuing on his job. But if he's going to be doing another project that is going to be on a different aspect of music, then that'll be cool. Thoughts on Slayer's Show No Mercy and Hell Awaits? I did like Show No Mercy, but it's not one of those standout albums in Slayer's discography. Hell Awaits is much better. I really think that's one of their top favourite albums, in my opinion. It just goes along with one of my favourites. South of Heaven and Rain in Blood are my favourite Slayer albums. Um, and I think Seasons in the Abyss is one of their best too. Christ's Illusion is quite underappreciated for some. Buckethead's solo work. Yeah, Buckethead. He has made more than 100 albums. I mean, I guess more than 150. Actually, let me go look it up. How many albums has he done now? Because he is a very brutal workaholic. He just could not stop working his arse off. And his clips of his performances, the clips of him live, doing the robot dancing and doing his skills on the guitar, just wild. And he's a brilliant bass player as well. Uh, Buckethead, his discography is really one of the largest. I think it's the largest discography that I've ever seen. I remember seeing the videos of him doing some maddening solos and a few covers that were incredible. I have heard a few albums, The Cuckoo Clocks of Hell, Electric Tears, which are excellent albums, Coma, but, I am looking forward to see. Holy shit! It's more than 200. No, look at this. He has made 306 studio albums. How the fuck can he still be continuing? When does he ever stop? Only released one EP, 3 music videos, 5 demo tapes. I mean, Jesus. His discography is really the largest. The largest discography that I've ever seen. So, I'm just very surprised that he's still working. Um, some more comments. Tyler, again, I'm so glad Mr. Bungle came back. Even if it's just to perform their first demo, I'm still happy about it. Yeah, at the end of the day, what more would really like to see from Mr. Bungle? If Mr. Bungle would be in Birmingham, I hope I will get the chance to see them live and just, go ape shit. If they play some of my favourites like My Ass is on Fire, I would be losing it. And same goes with um, Squeeze Me Macaroni and a few songs from the other two albums. But the debut really just brings back memories for me of Mr. Bungle's work. Um, Be mindful and wise. Thoughts on deathcore as a genre? I know you hate Immure, as do I. But there's bands in the genre with talents like Carnifex, Whitechapel, and Born of Osiris. Whitechapel, I prefer to listen to a bit of their music over Immure. Carnifex, I have respect for the band, and same with Born of Osiris. Those bands to me are listenable much more than Immure. Deathcore, though, I just really don't like. I don't like the whole boring, monotonous repetition of the genre. And Immure, I still loathe that band. And I sometimes always ranted why I don't like the band by myself, when I'm not making a video. Immure to me is the worst band in metal. And I stand by my opinion. Guitar Bang. Um, how you any original music with your band in? I think you're trying to ask um, if I've got originals planned. I have actually made some originals that could be potential ones for the band because I have made a good selection of songs. They are songs that were made in different inspirations. Some that are inspired by The Who, to the Rolling Stones, Oasis, and one of the songs that I did was very Stooges inspired because of how much I adore Funhouse, and some that is inspired by um, Jimi Hendrix, your lead guitar playing wise. Stone Roses, I just feel like when it comes to making an original sound, I really want to present them with with their own with their own feelings and imagination, because some of the songs that I was making, I want them to be as interesting because some of it was really psychedelic inspired, as that I was fascinated with imagery in that kind of inspiration for lyrics, not for music only, but for music with psychedelic lyrics. But I hope it'll work out, as I'm very, very thrilled and happy about them. Tyler, I wish I could work as hard as Buckethead. Well, if I would say that, it's going to be impossible. I have Mr. Bungle self-titled on CD. I should get their albums on CD. I have their other two on vinyl, but not the debut on vinyl, which is pretty expensive whenever I look them up on eBay, which is pretty crazy because some people would charge quite a lot of money when they sell one that is in the UK or from a different country. I sometimes order stuff that is, from the US, but not much. Most of the stuff that I buy online is from the UK. Robert Johnson, legend. I have been admired by his skills and talent. One of the top best pioneers for any genre, period. I know you've got Son House to Blind Willie Jefferson and the others from the blues scene in the 30s and the 40s, but Robert Johnson, I have been really obsessed with him, and his picking on the guitar was something unique and pioneering, pioneering for many rock and blues bands to be coming in the music scene after Robert Johnson's music. I have King of the Delta Blues Singers on remastered vinyl, and I was so thrilled to have it in the collection. Be mindful and wise. Do you prefer Cold Chamber or Devil Driver? Oh, Cold Chamber. They were one of the bands that I had loved as a teenager. I still remember that Cold Chamber were one of the favourites in just, you know, the underrated, underappreciated metal scene. So I think with Cold Chamber now, I have not listened back to them for a very long time. I don't think I would ever come back to Cold Chamber because I think they were a guilty pleasure band. And I think that when I compare them to other metal bands, some say that Cold Chamber is like a very bad, boring, generic band. But back in the day, I was, loving the self-titled debut. I have chamber music on CD as well. So Cold Chamber were a guilty pleasure band that I did enjoy for some time. Devil Driver, I'm not a fan of Devil Driver. I do like the sound of the band for what they are, but I'm just not a fan. Guitar Bang, Django Reinhardt, really good, excellent guitar player. I actually have a record of some of his stuff, and to think about him, using a few of his fingers after a fire incident on his fretting hand to play guitar with only three or two fingers, that's crazy. And, Gary Moore was inspired by, that kind of thing because, most of the lead playing that he did, he only used like these two fingers, sometimes with three, but sometimes whenever he just, rips a solo, he would just use the middle finger and the index finger. But I think with just mostly rhythm, he would just, usually uh, use the obvious fingers for playing rhythm, but for lead, a lot of it's just for these two. Um, so sorry guys, I'm just checking if I actually didn't trod on a lead with the swivel chair. So I think we are close to 2 hours. So I think when the 2 hour mark is up for the stream, I might like to end it here because I've been streaming, really long. Guitar Bang, Be Mindful and Wise and Tyler. Be Mindful and Wise, best era of AC/DC, the Bon Scott era or the Brian Johnson era. I love the Bon Scott era even more than the Brian Johnson era. I do like AC/DC a lot still, but with Brian Johnson, I think with his vocals, they're not as like strongly and defining enough like Bon Scott's. I love Bon Scott with AC/DC more. Django Reinhardt was a big inspiration for Tony Iommi. Of course, Tony Iommi being fascinated with his playing as well. Guitar Bang I heard when Tony from Black Sabbath cut his finger, a friend gave him one of his records and inspired Tony to continue. Yes, I remember seeing that from a documentary, like one of the documentaries about how Tony Iommi became a guitar player after his machine working accident, cutting one of his fingertips off. Great show, and thanks for your time and keep up the great work. Thank you very much, Guitar Bang. And that is about do it for this live stream. Thank you very much to three of the subscribers that had turned up to share anything with me: Tyler, Guitar Bang, and Be Mindful and Wise. Thank you guys very much for tuning into the live stream, and this turned out very, very well. I'm very, very glad that it, worked out for the better. And let's see if there's going to be some more streaming that I would like to do, and hopefully get some people, some more involvement with me on future streams. Two hours of some very good streaming. Tyler, thanks for the chat, dude. Anytime, guys. And whenever when I would want to do a live stream, I would be talking about it in a community section post from my channel, and to let you guys know about it, say like a week or a few days before I do the next one. More streaming, please. And hey, guys, thank you very much for tuning in, and I'll keep you guys posted for more videos in the near future.